Hello, I'm Dr. Liz Cruz, gastroenterologist here in Phoenix, Arizona. Welcome to my kitchen. I'm so excited that you are here with me and happy Memorial Day. So today I'm going to cook up a little meal for our Memorial Day celebration. The kids are off of school and we thought we'd do something a little special. And so I'm going to make a vodka-based cream sauce minus the vodka. It's going to be a tomato-based cream sauce that I'm going to make. We're going to make some pasta. It's just make a nice little meal here to celebrate Memorial Day. This is a pan that I'm going to start out with. I'm going to be sauteing some onions, a little bit of garlic, and yes, we're going to use some minced garlic. Typically, I would have the pan on the stove so that I could heat up the broth before I start sauteing. But because I want you guys to see everything, I'm going to just do everything right here for right now. Many recipes, especially because this is an Italian meal, many recipes will recommend that you use some olive oil to saute your onions and your garlic, and then eventually we're going to put the tomatoes in there. For purposes of what I'm doing, our goal is to make it as healthy as possible. And it's not that olive oil is not healthy, because it is, but when you heat it, it does change the properties of it. So I'm going to be using a vegetable broth. And this is what I'm going to put into the pan. And then I'm going to start heating it so that it can get ready. And now I'm going to go ahead and get this on the stove, and I will start heating it so that it can get ready for when I cut the onions. So for this recipe, typically I make a pretty big batch where I'm using 15 to 20 Roma tomatoes and an entire onion. This is going to be a smaller, a more reduced recipe. And so I'm using 10 tomatoes. And this is a smaller onion, so I am actually going to go ahead and use this entire onion. I'm going to cut it up. And as you notice, I'm not trying to do tiny little slices. I'm just doing big slices, big chunks. It doesn't have to be perfect because these are just going to saute, then they're going to roast, and eventually I'm going to blend them. So it doesn't matter really what size they are. They're going to saute and then roast. So they'll be nice and soft. So I'm going to use some garlic. And normally I will actually use like garlic cloves and then press them. But this time I'm going to use it from the jar because this garlic is really good and I really enjoy it. So now I'm cutting up the tomatoes. It is not necessary to cut these in tiny pieces because I'm going to put these into the saucepan to saute them. And then I'm going to put them in the oven. And they're going to bake in there for an hour and a half. And so they're going to get nice and soft. And that's why it's not necessary to make them really tiny pieces. My wife is always concerned when I make this meal that it takes too long and it's very labor intensive and it's just too much. She's always concerned about me. But the reality is that I really enjoy making this meal. Yes, it may take a little bit longer, but really it's just cutting up stuff and it's actually relaxing and it's just a really enjoyable meal to make. So I really, really love this meal a lot. So like I said at the beginning, this is a vodka cream sauce, but today we're not going to use the vodka. But usually this would be the time where I would put the vodka into the mix with the onions and the garlic so that the alcohol could evaporate. So you want your onions to be translucent as much as possible. And then once you get them to that point, then you can go ahead and add the tomato. And one thing that I do start doing around this point is I start seasoning. I'm a Puerto Rican, but my wife is Italian, and she has really taught me how to use pepper in my cooking. Because typically I never used to use pepper, but she's taught me, and especially if I'm making something Italian, I have to use pepper. Okay, so we've got some garlic salt. We did some salt. We get some pepper. We have some oregano. Okay, I'm going to go ahead now and start and put my tomatoes in here so they can start sauteing. So I put my tomatoes in, mixed them in here with my onions, and I'm just going to let this saute just for another 5-10 minutes before we put it in the oven, because that's where the real cooking is going to come in. And I actually do use a lot of seasonings. Now that I put the tomatoes, I'll put a little bit more of this. I like to put my seasonings in because I want them to bake in nicely when we put this into the oven. We're going to turn on the oven and set it at 375. Take a look at this. Isn't it beautiful? It actually smells so good. It smells really good. We're going to go ahead and transfer it into this pan and get it ready to put in the oven. We're going to put it in the oven now, and we're going to cook it. We're going to roast it for an hour and a half. All right, we just pulled it out of the oven. It's been roasting for about an hour. I actually let it roast less than I typically would just because I decreased the amount of what I made. So it's roasted for about an hour. We're just going to let it cool down now for about 30-45 minutes. We've let it cool down now. We're going to put this in the blender and just make it nice and smooth. All right, it's all in the blender. We are ready to blend. I blended it for about 30-40 seconds. See how nice that looks? Nice and smooth. Nice little sauce already. So it's not a huge amount. Usually I will make this is all the way to the top. So I'm going to use this pot. It's a smaller pot than what I usually use, but it's going to be plenty for what we need to do. Let anything go to waste. We have gotten to the moment where our sauce is almost done. We're going to taste it and season it up a little bit more. The recipe asks for heavy cream, and I usually will use heavy cream. But this time I wanted to use an alternative. So this is a non-dairy heavy cream that I found at the store, and we're going to use this. And the other thing too is that it also asks for Parmesan, and I usually do put Parmesan, but again, on this recipe, we're going to simplify it even more. I'm not going to use Parmesan. So during this time is where I will continue to season this up. As you recall, before we put it in the oven, we were seasoning it up with salt and garlic salt and pepper. But a lot of times it still will require a little bit more. It definitely needs more salt. We're going to put half a cup of this heavy cream. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get the heat going, a low heat. This tomato and onion has already been cooking for over an hour, but we're just going to keep mixing in the heavy cream and it'll be pretty much ready to go. So when you put the cream in, that's where you get your lighter color. Looks good. All right, we're going to try this out. Delicious. This is ready. So I'm just going to leave it here on the stove, just on a very low simmering heat. Let it warm up now that I put that cream into it. In the meantime, I'll get the pasta ready and get everything else ready. We have completed our Memorial Day meal. I chose rigatoni pasta. You can choose whatever pasta you have in your pantry. I did 1 pound and then I mixed it up with the sauce and sprinkled a little parsley just to decorate it up a little bit. Steamed some asparagus and seasoned it up with a little bit of olive oil after I steamed it. Sprayed a little olive oil on it, little pepper and sea salt, and we are ready. This is our Memorial Day feast. Thank you so much for joining us and happy Memorial Day.